world of 1916 was complex. Well, the world of 1945 was complex. The world of 2016 is intensely complex. You'll be dealing with terrorists. You'll be dealing with hybrid armies. You'll be dealing with little green men. You're going to be dealing with tribes. You'll be dealing with national leaders and local leaders. You'll be dealing with politics and economics. And you'll be dealing with direct fire and indirect fire. And you're going to be dealing with it all. And it's all going to be dealt with simultaneously.
Monday, 12/12/2016. Scott Hensler, Tinfoil Hat Club. Tonight I want to address, this subject's come up many times and a lot of emails and a lot of people dealing with this, and I want to hit it directly because it affects me as well. And I was not subject to loud noises. I was not in any war where bombs went off. I've been around in machine shops and loud noises, but this is a different animal. Now, before I continue on tinnitus or tinnitus, however anyone wants to mention it, this is not medical advice. This is my experience. This is what I've dealing with, helping people through the problems, the situations. And it's very annoying. This is a type of torture, and as I go through this, you're going to realize exactly what I'm talking about, and I know it's affecting a lot of you. Now, whether it's cell phone towers, Wi-Fi's, when I say Wi-Fi like tinnitus, the Wi-Fi connection, I'm talking about every type of electromagnetic source. Everything from your cell phone, cell towers, smart meters, satellites, CERN, other devices out there that could be stationed in vehicles, put in offices next to you to beam into you. One of the favorite things is to use a Prius, because a Prius has they're hybrid, so they have their large battery, and so they can park that vehicle and point, microwave into your office, into your apartment, into your home, and go long periods of time. But, everything that we're going to be discussing in relation to this issue of ringing in the ears, and it isn't just in the ears, it's in the mind, a white noise. And that's one of the worst torturous issues. Now, if this is something that you're dealing with, could there be medical issues? Well, of course. Of course. What was his name that was the captain on Star Trek? One of the episodes where he was fighting this reptilian, one of the explosives went off too close to him and actually damaged his ear, and for years and years he had tinnitus so bad that it really literally drove him crazy. Now, there was some medical treatments and other things that they did to help suppress that, and he was able to get back on his feet. He's been very successful. But so there are things that can happen, but I'm talking about, and I'm setting the demonic to the side right now too, because there's a demonic issue. What I'm talking about is psychotronics, an attempt to map your mind and an attempt to inject into your mind, to download, to cause harm, to cause illness, mental illness, physical illness, cancers, insanity, loss of jobs, loss of relationships, you name it. This is war against us. This is crimes against humanity. And as I go through this, there's also a gang-stalking connection. So this is part of mind control through pain compliance. Again, as I mentioned, programming. Now, I mentioned last week the movie Cell, and I didn't get a chance to go over that. I was going to go over that, but I didn't. So I'm going to touch on it tonight. I'm not going to talk too much about it because I don't want to give the plot away. It was based on a novel from 2006 by Stephen King, demon-possessed Stephen King. Okay, it's a movie, sci-fi horror, and John Cusack, Samuel L. Jackson are the two main stars in this. But as we've talked about before, that Hollywood is very big in telling us what they're doing. And I believe that there is a connection with this movie, and towards the end, like I said, I don't want to give too much because if you want to see it, I want to give it away. But I believe that there's a epiphyta, there's a connection, there's an understanding of CERN. Okay? Now, in reviews, it didn't do very well. They, gave the acting and the plot a hard time. But again, this had nothing to do with trying to make a movie that was appealing. This was, again, the Illuminati telling us what they're doing to us. All right? All right. So, again, understand that when you go and watch the movie, that at the very end of it is where the key information that is revealing to CERN that will be acknowledged. So at least watch for that. All right, before I get into it, I want to cover, we're heading towards Christmas. Christmas is a lie. Christmas is to take your eyes off of Jesus. Here we are in winter cold. We see in Revelations, pray that your plight is not during the winter. We've got earthquakes all around, very bad ones. In fact, California is just a rockin', along with some islands off of, those areas over in the south, over in Asia and so forth. It's just amazing what's going on. And then, of course, we got Pizzagate. And, they're trying to put that down, saying that it's alternative media lying. No, it's the truth. When they give us a hard time about conspiracy theories, no, it's a conspiracy fact. A conspiracy is two or more plotting against an individual. And so this mind control or this manipulation of words is to social engineer us into rejecting anything that indicates the truth. Right? Now, the increase of psychotronics is also, again, related to the effects from gang stalking. So as I go into this, I want you to understand that there are two factions of this. One, it can be pure demonic, and then it can be synthetic demonic, okay, producing synthetic mental illness, meaning that if left alone, you wouldn't have had this issue. And synthetic physical illness, meaning that if you were left alone, you wouldn't have the illnesses. Now, a loss in your immune system, arthritis, sinus infections, teeth that's going bad, other issues of the bowel, of your digestive system. Again, tonight we're addressing the hearing. All of this can be affected through psychotronics, through electromagnetic waves, through microwaves, through extremely low waves, ELF. All the spectrum that is known as the electromagnetic spectrum in large doses and particular frequencies of what we call frequency shift keying, amplitude bursting, these things as they're projected towards you can cause your body to react in most horrible ways. And how do we know that? Well, just throw some food into the microwave. All right? Anything that has moisture in it is going to heat up because H2O is resistive to radio waves. So whenever you have resistance, you have friction. When you have friction, you have heat, and therefore you heat the food. But at the same time, it's rearranging the molecules because it's like a bullet going through, a target. Okay, that target will never be the same. The whole target may be okay, but the target will never be the same. Same thing with skin tissue. Same thing with x-rays. Those that had, full-time x-rays in the very beginning when they were experimenting with it, got leukemia. Okay? And so as we're bombarded with all the radio waves around us, which again includes cell phones, Wi-Fi's, our computers, the smart meters, the smart appliances that talk to the smart meters, again, the cell towers in itself with the high-powered and those things of microwave coming from satellites, but we also have third-party weapons by the CIA, by FBI, by DARPA, by the Pentagon, by other agencies, intelligence agencies that are within, that are black ops, that set this all up to give us a hard time, and I'm dealing with a great deal of you. In fact, I'm getting a little bit hit hard right now because they don't want me to talk about this. All right? Now, as I move forward, I'm going to be revealing more and more. That means more and more people are going to come forward, and I will need your support more than ever. Because, again, as I mentioned, I'm not going to stop. I can't stop. This is what I've been called to do, and this is what I'm doing. And I thank you for your support because it has enabled me to minister to I don't know how many people. I'd have to sit down over the years. But recently, a lot of the people who are calling that are gang-stalked, that are affected by this technology, are literally ready to lose their minds. And so the comfort of knowing that someone cares, that they're not crazy, that they can tell their story and someone believes them is in itself a healer. And those that have experienced this, because you can go to a church and they'll throw you out in your keister. They'll think you're nuts. They'll literally think you're crazy. And the thing of it is, a lot of them in there are actually being affected by this because you don't need to hear the noises in your head to be affected by this technology. Do you understand it? So the noises that you're hearing in specific are because of widebandedness of the frequencies, and as I go through this, I want to cover it in detail. And so your audio nerves are affected, much like antennas picking up and retransmitting. If you ever had an old crystal radio set, I did as a kid, the simplicity of it, with a cat whisker, they call it, on a crystal with a coil and a small antenna and a ground and some headphones, very simple radio called detection, is able to receive radio transmissions from like a local radio AM station. Well, the same thing with, whether it's the optic nerve of your eyes or whether it's the nerves within, coming out from the cochlea that pick it up. And so as I go through this in detail, I want to bring that out. Now, the Phoenix incident show that I did, I've turned that into a YouTube video. Now, I've inserted about 50 pictures. There were a lot of pictures I put in there that had to do with what I dealt with, because I've told my story in that show. Some of the pics that have been taken out, from the movie itself, the Phoenix incident, dealing with the Phoenix lights, and you'll be able to access that on Tinfoil Hat Club. You'll see the section to it. Now, last Friday, Rip Logan, a guest, was on, and we were discussing water spirits in a picture that he sent me. I was able to post that picture on Tinfoil Hat Club as well, and so I invite you to go look at it. Julie, when she looked at it with her daughter, they came up with somewhere between 15 and 20 spirits that they saw within that picture. Not just some of the main ones that you see there. There's one great big one smiling at the girl who's standing in the waterfall, and that's pretty spooky. You need to remember, these were not touched. They were not photoshopped. This was taken by a camera and then sent to a friend. And so there you go. So check it out and see what you can see. Not just the obvious ones, but there's some in there that, if you really look hard, they're just going to jump right out at you. All right? Now, I wanted to mention, too, when it comes to water spirits, that I have worked with people, mostly women, that while they're in a public pool, a lake or ocean, that any of the time they are not sexually molested by spirits unless they're in the water by water spirits. Okay? So that does happen. If that's something that happens to you, maybe, some even in the water, but it's usually a pool where there's a congregation of them, there's a village of them, there's a plethora of them. And if you've got open doors, if you've got curses, if you've got something in your bloodline that needs to be resolved, most everyone does because you haven't been through deliverance, then you fall victim to that. And you can carry something home, and I have seen that. All right, tinnitus, by definition, says the perception of noise or ringing of ringing in the ears. One of 5, supposedly. Now, supposedly 10 to 15% is really what it comes out to. I believe that number is only speaking to those who do have a clinical issue where there was damage done to the ear, maybe even brain damage, something along that line, or there's other deficiencies within your system that are causing. So there are underlying conditions. Now, some, as they get older, this happens too. This can happen with hearing loss, again, hearing injury, or even a circulatory system where there isn't enough oxygen getting to the audio nerves. Now, again, loud noises such as explosions, guns, those who've been in the war, they've had bombs around them, machinery, cutting machines, drilling machines, those who have dealt with aircraft like turbine engines, and those who at one time really enjoyed loud music can damage the ear. So I'm taking all of that and setting it to the side. This is not what we're talking about. This is why we're not dealing with the clinical substance of this. Okay? Now, however, it may start in the ringing of the ears, and in the ringing in itself, it may end up being a white noise within the mind. So it isn't just an outside ring, or it isn't a ring within the ear. You're actually hearing white noise within your mind. Now, what is white noise? White noise, in its definition, is the spectrum of all frequencies happening at once, or a selected few. You can have white, you can have blue, you can have red, you can have green noise. And so it's a specific band, a spread of frequencies within the audio spectrum. And so white noise, and in its definition, covers that whole spectrum. So this can bring pain. This can be extremely disturbing to an individual. Now, I myself am dealing with it. It started back, it's going to be 10 months. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, I stated that it was like someone plugged in an earphone jack, and you heard that electrical click, And right then it started, woke me right up. And for the next 30 days, I kept hearing specific audio tones, almost like the old touch-tone keypads. And it was when I was going into deep sleep, okay? And as the studies that I've done, that's one of the points in time that when they're monitoring your mind, which they can do, when you start to go into REM, they know that, and they can do this effect to cause a cause and effect. And that's what they were doing to me. Now, in an understanding of what they were doing, I didn't receive it. I wasn't going to accept it. I wasn't going to allow it to bother me, and that all eventually stopped. But in time, the noise has increased, and it's only when I get out of the office, when I get out of town, I get somewhere over in Montana, I get down behind the mountains, when I get away from the cell towers, and it doesn't just happen right away. Now the intense amplitude within the office when I leave does stop. And it's very noticeable when I come back that if I can hear it, it may be 10 times more when I get back in the office. That's how bad it is. And then when I leave, it takes a little while, but it eventually tapers out. So it decreases when I do this. Now, changing locations from, let's say, your office, home, or school, if you're moving from one place to another, you may actually notice that it increases or decreases. This will tell you whether there's cell towers in the area, whether there's strong Wi-Fi within the school, within the home, within the office, in or your own phone itself, or the combination of several phones. Have you ever seen the demonstration where 3 or 4 people put their phones in a circle on a table, and they took a kernel of popcorn, unpopped, and they put it in the middle, and then through another phone they called all their phones, and near field from the phones in the radiation pattern actually cause the popcorn to pop. Okay? Now that's on YouTube somewhere. And so this can be the combination or the amplification when it comes to wattage. Let's say you light one candle, so you have one candle power, which I think comes out to about 1.4 watts of white light. And then you light another candle, now you've doubled the wattage. Okay? Now that means that this also happens with radio waves. So many of the amplifiers that are out there, you hear the 10,000 watt radio station. A lot of the new technology isn't one big transmitter anymore. It's several small transmitters combined together with a combiner. So if something goes wrong, the whole thing doesn't go down. They can pull one module out that may, only take away, 1,000 watts, replace it, repair it, whatever, put it back in, and they're back online, and they only lost 1,000 watts out of the 10,000 watt transmitter instead of the whole thing going down. So the point of it is it may be a combination that are in sequence, sequential to the network that is following, tracking, harassing, gang stalking you. Do you understand that? And you may have someone or a particular gang stalker that is always there. I know people are dealing with drones, again with vehicles, especially panel vans and so forth, that these things come and go, and it's horrific. All right. So I mentioned that getting out of town really is the only relief for me. For a while there, I was able to go up to Sandpoint. I was able to go down to Boise. I was able to go down to different areas, but that's all changed now. So it isn't until I actually get out of cell phone tower line of sight, that I can have relief from this. All right. So again, Wi-Fi, other cell phones, smart meters, and their appliances. That also means your computers, cell towers, radio stations, as I mentioned, public service two-way radios like police, fire, and ambulance. They can have carriers. They can be double duty. Okay. Now, again, your computer or even your phone, your cell phone, is a multi-band transceiver. Okay, with full duplex. So it means it receives and transmits at the same time. It's a very sophisticated device. It's an incredible device. But it covers everything from 800 megahertz all the way up to 2.4, which is Bluetooth. So you have multi-band, Bluetooth, and Wi-Fi, as well as the cell phone technology. So your phone in itself is the enemy. Do you understand? So I really recommend turn it off, pull the battery, whatever it is when you're not using it, or get one of those covers where you can slip it into. One, they can't track you, but in itself your phone stops working because it's in a Faraday shield, a Faraday cage. And that, because of the transmission, meaning transceive, receive, then you're not being bombarded too. You may not get a call, but my goodness, you're not getting harassed. Okay? Now, let me point out here that all the frequencies allocated by the FCC, now in coordination with the International Telecommunication Union, ITU, established in 1992, that myself, as a ham radio operator, an amateur radio operator, I hold an extra class license, so I'm able to have full power, all the bands, every radio possible I can operate. It's kind of an engineering grade. And because of this ITU, what the FCC has done is because of the UN, United Nations, they've placed themselves underneath it. Now, you need to understand that first Congress was the one who controlled radio waves. And it became so massive and so difficult, because you can imagine technology increasing, that they then sanctioned the FCC around the 40s and 50s. Okay, so in originally 20s, 30s, and 40s, Congress was dealing with it. And as I mentioned, in 1992, they basically gave it over to the New World Order. Now, where are they based in? Geneva, Switzerland. What's in Geneva, Switzerland, and its location and base? CERN. Now that's interesting. Electromagnetics, Radio waves, transmissions, CERN, Geneva, Switzerland. Okay? Now, the World Health Organization, kind of like an OSHA, Occupational Safety Hazard Administration, was to oversee the harmful health effects of radio waves onto human. But they've turned a blind eye from this. So all around the world, they're not looking into any of the effects to any degree that brings any satisfaction to assure that we're okay from radio waves. Okay, in fact, the allocation of frequencies turns out just happens to be the right carrier, the intervention of human mind, those things of radio waves, electrical activity, electrical charge, all perpetrated, all controlled, all manipulated by electromagnetism effects. Do you understand that? Cell phone allocation of frequencies by the FCC, governed by ITU, otherwise the United Nations, has put you in a position that all cell phone towers, these things that are in everyone's pocket and everyone's purse that carry with you, affect your gamma, beta, alpha, theta, delta. Gamma 27 hertz and up, beta 12 to 27 hertz and up. Now hertz, that after the man who determined that this is how many cycles per second. Alpha 8 to 12, theta 3 to 8, delta 0.2 to 3. All right? Now, the hearing, or ABR, auditory brain response, basically that of the inner ear, the cochlea, this pathway for hearing that is also connected to the hammer, the anvil, the stirrup, your eardrum, that they can, through electrodes on your scalp, stimulate into your mind through the cochlea 1,000 to 4,000 hertz direct in, giving you the impression that you hear from 20 hertz to 20,000. Now, those are direct electrodes to your scalp. This is called evoked potential. Psychotronics is referred to evoked potential. Mapping your mind is evoked potential. Otherwise, they do a cause, they see what the effect is. The effect is how your mind works, and so hence they map your mind. That is what they've done. That is what they continue to do. So if you haven't heard noises yet, you haven't heard the white noise, you haven't heard the ringing, doesn't mean you're not being mapped. What it means is they haven't finished it yet, or you're next in line. Okay, now a lot of you are familiar with cochlear implants. Those are direct electrodes to stimulate the auditorial nerve. Now that auditorial nerve, as I mentioned earlier, that connects to the brain, just like the optic nerve, that in itself is affected by electricity, electromagnetism, radio waves. These things are all the same, but when you have electromagnetism, you don't have to have a direct connection. You can have a near field, a proximity, you can be connected, and or you can be long distance depending on the frequency and the amplitude of the power. Okay, so the auditorial nerve connects to the brain, okay, and the small short of that acts like an antenna, okay? Now, this is also through the temporal lobe on the side of your brain. So the radio waves entering in, now we've talked about making tinfoil hats, and that's what the name of the show is and all this, but in reality, it's a misnomer. Radio waves, because of propagation, can come in all directions. Do you understand? So when you make a tinfoil hat, essentially what you're doing is you're making a parabolic. Now, if it was a high frequency, let's say several gigahertz, that was, micro size, meaning that it's millimeter, that it would be more like a knife coming at you, then yes, that would protect it to some degree, because it would be so pinpoint, it'd be like a bullet coming at you. But when you get into the lower frequencies, and I'm not talking about ELF, I'm just talking about gigahertz or megahertz, that the propagation is that the whole room will flood. Same thing with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. Do you know the room is so flooded with electromagnetic waves that the SWAT teams actually have video viewers that when they walk up to a room and you've got your computer, like your laptop, or you've got your Wi-Fi router, that they actually can receive the signals coming out of the room. Your body interferes with it, and on their video viewer know exactly where you're sitting, how many people are in the room, your size, male, female, just because of your Wi-Fi router. Do you understand that? Now, they can do that with infrared. They can do it with several devices. This is how far advanced they are with the electromagnetic spectrum and their ability to decipher, to decode. Okay? So, again, with the mind being affected by this, the occipital lobe, the back of the head, above the mastoids, is where the optic nerve comes in through for your visual cortex to be able to see. That in itself is where they're transceiving from, so they can hear what you're hearing, they can see what you're seeing through the high-speed computers, okay? They're able to decode your thoughts once you've been mapped and absolutely know everything you're doing, everything you're seeing, so you yourself, as you come into a building, as you come into a bank, as you come into a business meeting, you yourself are a transmitter and literally giving the enemy everything. Now, this can also be done through spirit means. Okay, this was what remote viewing was all about. Remote viewing has nothing to do with psychotronics. Okay, so this is how advanced they are. Now, as they continue with the Cray computers, artificial intelligence, the cell phone networks, they're able to map more and more people. Okay. Now, when we talk about the computers that are there in Salt Lake with NSA, that's what's going on, ladies and gentlemen. Now they're able to take this massive amount of data, crunch the numbers in a very short period of time, giving real-time viewing and audio of what you're doing. Now, that also means that since the mind is a two-way highway, they can literally put it into your mind. So you can start having thoughts, just like, dealing with the devil. And the devil's behind this, and the people who are doing this are demon-possessed. And so, yes, there is a direct connection to evil, but this is through electronic means. All right? So what are you hearing? You're hearing sounds, noises, and voices. Again, the white noises. Now, a lot of people with schizophrenia hear noises, but again, that's a demonic situation. But again, we're talking about synthetic demons, a synthetic mind control causing the effect of demonization. Okay, but now we're with this, what I'm going through now, I'm going to eliminate the demonic action, only focusing on the psychotronics. So what you're hearing in particular is a disruption of your alpha and your delta. Now, this can be the extreme during your process of REM, when you're falling into the deep sleep. When you're waking up, this affects your memory. This affects your cognitive operation and control, meaning that you wonder why you do things that you didn't want to do or set out to do, or you have a temper now you didn't have. You might be actually sexually active that you weren't before, or you might even be now jading your spouse. You may now not have any desire for your spouse, and believe me, there's a lot of relationships that are in trouble because of this technology. So with all this going on, as I mentioned before, one of the things about frequency shift keying when it comes to encoding signals, do you remember the old 56K dial-up? You would dial in, to America Online. They were one of the first ones, which, by the way, you notice that's the pyramid. Yes, it was the Illuminati, first one out there. And when it would connect, you'd hear all this noise. Well, this audio noise is 0 and 1s. This is computer talk. This is the downloading or uploading of massive amounts of information. So this white noise that you're hearing, and you may equate it to, let's say, a baby's rattle, and that ball can be several beads, and when you shake the rattle, Each bead will strike the ball at a different time, giving the full spectrum of the audio generated by it, giving a unique sound. And so this white noise that you're hearing is a massive controlled download into your mind. Do you understand that? This is for real. This is serious. Now, this means that's only one aspect. If they literally want to put into your mind that thought that you think you did something when you were a kid, or that you or whatever, they can do that. This is part of the torture. This is long-term effect. This is them getting off, having a great time doing what evil does. All right? So your immune system is suppressed, your trauma inflicted, your hormones are out of whack, your heart and your basic nervous system is being corrupted. Okay? All torture, all illegal, crimes against humanity. And where's the outcry? So, ladies and gentlemen, I can assure you that Trump, I can assure you that Obama, I can assure you the Clintons, I can assure you the Bushes, all of them know this technology is in operation. It needs to stop. Just think of kids now that, children aren't going to be like children. They're basically being tormented, and now they're not having their parents. Their parents are acting funny. Their parents are like on drugs. And by the way, many of you seek medical, and I want to talk about that, and that doesn't work for you, all right? So this is also a form of pain compliance, all right? So in reality, this is like a preemptive strike like Pearl Harbor. We know that 2017, we know what's coming, is going to be a game changer, a life-changing experience for all of us. We know they're firing up the FEMA camps. How in the world are they going to control all the masses? Again, when you see the movie Cell, you'll see that. Again, it's a hard movie to watch. I don't recommend it for everyone if you're a little bit weak-minded, or you have a weak stomach. But if it slaps you across the face and wakes you up, I'm going to recommend it. Because as I watch the movie, and that's what I like to do, is I like to go see what they're telling us, and that's what I did. And I can assure you that Stephen King is part of the New World Order. I can assure you that he himself is probably a reptilian. He himself is either at a minimal demon-possessed. Yes, that's what I said. Because anybody who's capable of writing what he writes in the short time that he can, it just flows out of that man. And that tells you where he's really at. And I've known people who were, fans of him that had lots of their books, and believe me, their lives are upside down. Okay, I know one person whose headboard was a bookshelf, and literally every book that man had written was on that headboard. And, well, you can probably figure out the way this person dreams, right? So again, this is for wearing us down, setting you up for a future long-term sickness. Because if, just like if you have the enemy, you have those that you're fighting against. If you do, chemical warfare, germ warfare, the biological issues, if you wear them down, you make them sick, then they're not going to be able to fight. They're in the foxhole, puking up their guts. They can't come out and fight. And so by this means of what they're doing, that's what they're doing, ladies and gentlemen. They're wearing you down. They're also setting the stage for your mind. This is why it's important to understand who you are in Christ. And as I finish out tonight, I want to address that. So again, they're setting us up for long-term mental illness, all trauma-based like Monarch. Monarch mind control is trauma-based, coming out of MKUltra. Okay? Again, the movie Cell does show this. Without exposing the full plot, again, I want you to understand that as you come to the end of the movie, I believe there's a connection there with CERN. And it has to do with a matrix that in and itself you think one thing when something is something else. That's part of the matrix. Okay? So again, it's a key bit towards the end. All right? So the matrix in your reality, as we see it, as you're experiencing, just where are you? How far down the rabbit hole have you been taken? That blue pill, that red pill, where are you at? Are you getting rid of your spouse? Are you changing jobs? Are you failing in what you're doing? Are you being so attacked that now you're willing to lash out at even innocent people? That's another thing, too. I've dealt with many people recently that have done that, and they've been arrested. They're now in the system. They've been through the court system. They've been incarcerated. They're on probation. They're now on watch. They lose their gun rights. Do you understand what they're doing? Okay. Now, note again that the ITU is in Switzerland, the location where CERN is at. All right? Now, CERN could, through pulse width modulation, like frequency shift keying, all the different modes of electromagnetic radio waves, that in itself, if the cell towers were ever to go down, it could pick up where they left off. Do you understand that? Okay? So think about this. Now, people have said, well, what about the EMP attacks? All the cell towers will go down. Well, maybe. But here's the thing you need to understand. The satellites are dealing with solar flares all the time. And so they have satellites that are even further out. And through optical observation of the sun, when they see a solar flare, they have about 2 seconds to give out the signal to shut everything down. So all the military satellites and the main communication satellites can go into lockdown. Now, they've also been beefed up a little bit, too. Their front-end receivers and so forth can have surge suppression. Now, we were supposed to have EMP suppression on our electrical grid system, but you can thank a particular Democrat that in 2008 voted, there was one vote left, and they voted against it. That meant we could have had those suppressors on our electrical grid, that if an EMP came along, we wouldn't be wiped out the way we are. And I forgot to look that woman's name up. I'll bring it up the next time, because I want them to know that the blood of the Americans is on that woman's hand. She had the ability to vote yes, and that was 2008, which meant it would have been in place, it would have been installed, we could have been ready, but we're not. We were set up, ladies and gentlemen. And I can assure you that whoever that was, I forget the woman's name, just as the Jews cried out, let the blood of Jesus Christ be on our hands. All right? So this EMP could shut down the cell towers, Wi-Fi, power grids, internet, but again, if they've set the system up, that could change. Now, I want you to understand that CERN in itself and where it's located, CERN is underground. CERN is protected by the minerals that are within the ground. Now, we were told that it was put there so it wouldn't affect anything else and all the other things, but in reality, that's a lie. That thing is so large, so powerful, that in itself it affects even the ley lines, because you need to remember, too, that ELF and the frequencies for submarine communication, you can transmit through the earth. Okay, you can have submarines underneath the polar caps, and they can still communicate because of the Navy's communication using ELF. All right. So in reality, when it comes to the EMP in itself, that CERN most likely would survive it. Most likely CERN could pick up where the cell towers that would have failed during an EMP, and in that fact that it's also, since it's down low, could handle a nuclear blast. All right, just like NORAD. Okay, so I believe that CERN in itself was put in the position, the place, the location, and the depth to deal with any EMP, because in itself, regardless of the power grid that they say brings to it, I know for a fact that it is nuclear powered. They have that ability. They can continue when everything else is failed. So if you look at the network of cell towers, that if they go down, that at one point that CERN in itself could be the hive main control. In and itself could pick up where everything else leaves off. All right? Now, satellites in itself, in order to operate on long term, do need ground control. All right? So an EMP could literally take them out, but again, it depends on the technology that they've put in place to protect it. So in reality, it depends who detonates the nuclear device. If it's done by the New World Order, there's already going to be a heads up, just like there was a heads up in 9/11 to get the family out, the Saudi family out of New York just prior to 9/11 happening. The Saudi family, the prince, gay, being in a lover relationship with George Bush Jr., got the heck out of Dodge before the Twin Towers came down. So NORAD in itself is protected. It's down in the ground, just like CERN. Then again, when we look at Denver with all the underground bases and Boulder, Colorado being the cyclotronic command center, all of the stuff that's happening to us when it comes to the noise, mind control, mapping the mind, the gang stalking is coming out of Boulder, Colorado now. Okay? So Boulder, Colorado in itself, they wish to, through their plans, eliminate Washington, D.C., and again, as we know, there's underground bases underneath the Denver airport, also in Boulder, Colorado, all the way over to Cheyenne Mountain, the network of underground systems throughout the United States. Again, nuclear in itself would wipe us out, but the continuity of government, or I should say the continuity of reptilian, will be sustained. Okay? So they can shut down and isolate anything that they need to in reality if it's the right sequence. So if it really truly is, quote, a terrorist act, and this whole terrorist thing is a farce, then they wouldn't be prepared for it. But if they knew they were going to do it, they could go into electrical lockdown with their suppressors. Okay, just like my equipment. Okay, I can take my equipment, like my handheld radios, and I can put it, like buy a microwave oven. You can go to these, flea markets or, 5 and dime places or used places, buy one for $5, $10, $15, cut the electrical cord off, and just store your radios inside the microwave because it's a Faraday shield. Or get a galvanized garbage can, line the lid with aluminum and put the lid on it and put all your equipment inside the garbage can. That's a Faraday cage. The tests that have been done just on a galvanized garbage can shows that whatever equipment you put in it will survive an EMP. All right? So with the technologies that they have, they're capable of doing this with the satellites, of shutting them down, isolating them. But like I mentioned, they have to do this because of solar flares. All right, so depending on who sets that nuke off, that depends on the circumstances. But again, a continuity of reptilian is what they're looking for. All right. Now, per the DSM-5, we've talked about this. I've been chastised for bringing this up. But, again, those who do this haven't done their homework. We need to understand from the DSM-4 to the DSM-5, this is the manual that psychologists use. Now, it doesn't mean they agree with it, but the court systems agree with it. The court systems, when they need to determine whether you're nuts or not, that's what they're going to use. So the DSM-5 from the DSM-4 has been rewritten that all the effects that you feel from psychotronics now are placed into a category to put you into a mental status that you are mentally ill. You need to be medicated, you need to be controlled, you need to be incarcerated, you need to be arrested, you need to be whatever. The amount of this activity that's taking place with everybody that's calling me, the horror stories that I hear. They've been pushed to a point where they couldn't take it any longer, and they finally lashed out, and next thing you know, they're on probation. They were incarcerated. Okay, they're under court-ordered evaluation. All right, just terrible situations. And now they're mandated to take medication and their psychotropic drugs. Okay, so this also with this implementation of the court system seizing everything, and if you do not cooperate with them, they literally can seize your funds, eliminate your medical benefits, even remove you from housing, keep you from getting the food necessary to sustain you. You lose your transportation. Okay, and all of this, if you were to stand against them and not take the medication as ordered by the court, you could potentially be in violation of your parole. Okay, and this is tyranny. In reality, this is all tyranny. This is to put you in bondage. Now, I need to let you know, as I talked about the behavior of gang stalkers, I did a couple shows on that they themselves are even under this. And it's one of the reasons that they're doing it is because they are under duress. All right. Now, there's always those who do enjoy doing this, and I talked about that, and I referred them as flying monkeys. Okay. So it's not all the same across the board for gang stalkers, but the end result is still the same. So the problem is through tyranny, paying compliance, through just like taking the mark of the beast, you wouldn't be able to buy or sell. That's basically what they've done. Do you understand the connection here? Okay. So they themselves are tormented, and in order to relieve the being tormented, to relieve the paying compliant, then they cooperate. Now, because the churches have not done what they've done, and here I go with the churches again. I know you get sick of me talking about this, but I'll tell you what. If you're going to quote a Christian church and they do not do deliverance, they are part of the system. They are part of the New World Order. They are demon-controlled. I'm telling you this. I've been doing this too long. Many of the people who are highly infected with demons who come to me got them in the church. And because the church did not do the Great Commission of Jesus Christ, we are where we're at. Do you understand that? Because in the details is the demons of all of this. Again, setting the demons aside, the point of it is that only evil could do this, all right? So again, these flying monkeys who are in cooperation with this, they enjoy it. And again, the narcissistic behavior, their conscience being seared, and judgment that's coming, it's not going to end well with them. They use their cell phones, other equipment, as I mentioned, in their cars, their apartment, the offices, basically harassing, inflicting painful, disturbing, mind-controlled, torturing radio waves. Eventually it gets so bad that I'm not, most people, as I finish this out, that this is one of the things I think is going to cause people to finally turn to Jesus Christ who didn't believe in him. Because it was through paying compliance that I came to Christ. So again, the noise you are hearing, or will hear, and believe me, everyone will in time, is not necessarily you may be hearing it, but it is affecting you. And then you will hear it. Okay? It's just kind of like cancer. I was listening, Sunday I like to spend using my ham radio to talk to people into other states, and on a good day I'll be able to talk to somebody into another country, and that's from my car to somebody else's car or someone else's home in another state in another country. And I was listening to a conversation of somebody who had lung cancer so bad that it had spread throughout the whole body, and it wasn't until there was a major side effect that they even know that they had cancer. And then it was too late to do anything, and within weeks they died. And that's my concern, that with this radio waves that we're being bombarded, all they've got to do is bring the amplitude up. These cell towers, if they kick into high gear and they put out all the power they're capable of doing, there's going to be birds flying through the air that are going to go poof and fall to the ground. And by the way, do we not see that? Do we not see masses of birds that have fallen from the sky in death? They're like pigeons. the ability, a homing pigeon, the ability to go from one place to another using the Earth's magnetic field in their brain, they're able to navigate. You take that and you disrupt it, you can fly them into windows, you can fly them into planes, you can fly them straight into the ground. Again, that's one of the things that HAARP can do. So you're already being affected, regardless if you hear it or not. The question is, how far has it gotten, all right? So as we look around us, we see social behavior. We see people acting strange, acting out, angry people, even ourselves, confused, making bad decisions, okay? Now, again, when you add the demonic factor, you have a cocktail of insanity, because you're already over the edge. And now it only takes one demon, one open door, one sin to break the camel's back with one straw. So some are strong, some are not so strong when it comes to your constitution of who you are, whether you can stand against the wiles of the enemy. In time, everyone will be affected to some degree or another. It will wear everyone down. It's very, very concerning about this. But here's the thing. I believe that the hand of God is going to move, that under the blood of Jesus Christ, that we will prevail. Because just like the seal of God upon the forehead is written in the book of Revelation, that those things that came out of the pit, they could not hurt them. But those things tormented man for 5 months that did not believe, that were not in Christ. So those who have rejected Christ, I believe that there's going to be a lot more demonic harassment, all right, along with radio waves. Those who are in the middle, that through this service that will be placed upon them, this wave that will this will actually draw them closer. There'll be a point in time, they say there's no atheists in foxholes. It turns out that's a lie. But a massive amount of people, when you're tormented to a certain point, you will eventually cry out. And I believe that that's what's going to happen. And I believe as God pours out His Spirit, that this is what's going to take place. Now, the thing is, why wait? Now, in 1993, I made the decision because I was in a fight and I fought back. And I've been fighting ever since. I'm still here. I'm still able. And thank you for who do support me, because without you, I couldn't do it. But again, you yourself, are you under the shield? Are you protected? Now, when we talk about the blood of Christ, we talk about a hedge of protection, we talk about Ephesians 6, the full armor of God. Again, these are weapons, these are tools, these are the ability to stand against the wiles of the enemy. Because again, the devil's in the detail for this whole thing. Now, one of the questions is, well, can we shield ourselves from the radio waves? Well, yes, we can. Is it practical for the average individual that moves about? No, it's not. It can be very expensive, okay? Now, a couple months ago, I had the show where I had 3 individuals on about gang stalking, and the one woman and her husband have spent tens of thousands of dollars shielding their bedroom. So at least they have a place to sleep that they're not affected. But they had to spend a lot of money. They had to build it per IEEE specs. I'm very familiar with Faraday cages when it comes to keeping out radio waves. When you need to work on a specific radio and you're around interferences, you need to be in one of these in order to test a radio so you're not interfered with. And so these things are very expensive. The grounding needs to be done correctly. There needs to be an application of filters in and out of the Faraday cage. So otherwise your bedroom is like a steel bell, okay, a bell jar. You go in, you close the door, you're completely encapsulated. Now, obviously, while you're in there, you would be in the dark. So you need to have power come in. Well, you need to have that power that comes in filtered because the radios will migrate through the wires. So it's very expensive, very costly, and it's not user-friendly to everybody. And this couple, this elder couple, they actually watch the satellite tracking They know when the iridium system is going to be overhead. She has set the alarm. When the alarm goes off, her and her husband drop everything and they literally go into the Faraday cage. That way they don't get burned. Their heart doesn't skip a beat. They don't feel like they're going to go crazy. This is how they live, ladies and gentlemen. This is what's going to happen to all of us at some point or another. But again, with the blood of Christ, those who are in Christ, I believe that God's hand will move. Okay? Now, there's some clothing that'll help, but it's just it's just not going to do, especially when they turn up the power. There's a point in time where being within the near field, it's going to be a lose-lose. So God is going to have to step in. This is, again, if we're not prepared emotionally, spiritually for this, is God going to be able to use us? Are you going to already be a basket case? So this is how the end times is going to be brought in. This is how the end times is going to be affecting all of this, is through technology. Okay, that's the beast system. Now again, we have the spirit realm, and then we have psychotronics. So this is a dual action that none of us were prepared for. And the church certainly never taught you about this. So only through cooperation, petitioning to God, in order to stand against the principality, the ruler of the air, to get this to stop and to turn it back on. Now, when I deal with people who are under a curse, or people word cursing, spoken curses, witchcraft curses, I tell them, I say, in the name of Jesus Christ, send it back to the sender. If you're being bombarded by these radio waves, send them back to the sender. These are not just your enemy. These are God's enemies. Do you understand that? Do you understand that? Most of these things are not human. You're here for a purpose in these times. So get ready. Be ready. Understand that God has a plan for you. And those, again, who are not in Christ, please, pray about it. All right? If you've never prayed before, you don't believe in prayer, try it. Because what's coming is not going to be pretty. And it's already affecting millions of people worldwide. And another thing you need to remember, that if they can drive people crazy, they can drive animals crazy. And we see the beasts of the field, we see things in Revelation and throughout Scripture where there is just an amount of chaos that is beyond the comprehension that causes men's hearts to fail them. All right, again, not trying to scare you, I'm being a realist, because this is what I'm dealing with. The phone calls, the emails that I'm getting, the people who come in, it's heartbreaking. So I'm standing against it. You need to stand against it. Corporately together, we can go against the small numbers who are really controlling this whole thing. Because when we cry out to the Most High God, that's when He comes in like the Calvary. All right. Be here on Wednesday and Friday. Not sure what I'm going to do on Wednesday. I've got some ideas, but either case, reminding you again that the Phoenix Incident, the Phoenix Light, is now on YouTube, my YouTube channel. You can access it through Tinfoil Hat Club. And in there I've got over 50 pictures that I've put in. That was a 6-hour editing job, so please go look at it. And if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do. If you haven't subscribed here on Blog Talk, please do. That helps the ratings. That gets it out there. This is a time that we need to really pull together. And I thank you for supporting me, because there are people whose lives are changing because of what you're doing. God bless everyone. I just, again, if you're dealing with radio waves in this sense, God bless you. You're not crazy. You're not alone. Give me a call. God bless.